So actually, Canada has always been in. We've been in this the entire time and on the wrong side. I always remind people that Canada sends RCMP soldiers to train the IOF how to treat the Indigenous people based on the John A. Macdonald of how to treat Indigenous people. We offer support to the IOF. It would not surprise me that we have members of the Canadian military serving as IOF soldiers, especially if they're dual citizen. But they do go in alongside the IOF. In fact, right after October 7th, we deployed, I think it was immediately 200 troops, which isn't a lot, relatively speaking. We already had troops there, and we've added even more since. And that was to work with the IOF. But my biggest thing is I wanted to highlight the point of the moral high ground. I think the concept of the moral high ground is one created entirely by imperialism and upheld often by unmelanated supremacy. The fact is, the victims of many vile acts of colonialism have been indoctrinated into religions spread by the colonizers and then told to take the moral high ground to appease this new god or this whatever that they're being told to believe in. And so this concept of the moral high ground and being better than has been used to continue to oppress people or to shame them out of retaliation. I think at some point this type of rage is justified. I think at some point wishing ill to certain people is justified. And I think at some point, if you are constantly being attacked, behaving in vile ways is justified. I say this as someone who is a stolen person on stolen land. But I also say this as someone who has been subjected to tremendous violence growing up and to this day. And as someone who, in normal circumstances, would not justify separating children from parents, I think certain children do need to be separated from parents if they stand any hope of rehabilitation, because the fact is, I think many of those parents cannot be rehabilitated. And quite frankly, I would not feel safe to attempt to rehabilitate and reintegrate at the expense potentially of wherever or whoever I reintegrate them with. And that may sound harsh and that may sound evil. But when you look at the context of how they ended up there in the beginning, that raises red flags and sounds the alarm bells. Pattern recognition. And to be clear, I do not condone violence. But we don't start things, we finish them. As I teach my son, if you're being put in a position where someone expects you to lose, the person losing is not going to be you. So we do not start the attack. But I think at some point, the response should not be tone policed. And I say that with the utmost love and respect.